Over the last 3 months, we have been interviewing people who claim to have had direct experience with either the Philadelphia experiment and or Montauk project. Now, if you recall the segment we did with Larry James, who was the time control manager at Montauk, he alluded to the notion that his program was not alone. Larry was confident there were others out there. Now, during a conference where Al Bielek spoke, Larry Solarz, like in dollars, Solarz, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Introduced himself to Al Bielek, and he said that he too lived a life that cannot be fully explained. And after personally hearing a quick overview of Larry's life, I asked him if he'd be open to an interview on the CD, and he agreed. So, Larry, welcome to this program, and thank you.
Well, thank you. It's not really the first time I've gone to the public eye with this, but probably the first time to this extent.
Well, we appreciate it, and hopefully it's going to do some good somewhere.
Well, can't hurt.
I hear you. Larry, when's the first time you met Al Bielek?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. It's been several years ago. I contacted Al after, I can't remember who or how I ended up with one of his books. I called the publisher. They got me in touch with him and Preston Nichols. I talked to both of them for a while and then kind of lost contact with Preston, but Al and I seemed to hit it off better, and we just stayed in touch all along. In fact, just the other day when I was talking to Al, he finally admitted that he believes somehow, somewhere along the line, he and I was on the same missions. We can't figure anything out as to when, where, what took place, or anything else, but that's why he feels there is such a, I guess you'd call it a bond or whatever between us.
So you actually feel a connection with him?
Yeah, somehow.
Okay, wow.
In fact, during a lot of the discussions, at one point Al was explaining to me in depth of how he and his brother ended up at Montauk after jumping ship on the Philadelphia experiment. And I proceeded to ask him what happened to the third guy. That kind of startled him, because he and his brother landed in kind of like the spotlight there on Montauk. It's like they was waiting for him.
Right.
And immediately took them under control. And that's when I asked what happened to the third guy that landed there. He landed back away out of the lights. I even gave him his name. And he says there was an individual by that last name on board the ship at the time, but he has no idea whatever happened to him.
Yeah, do you recall that name?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I should say.
Okay.
Well, I will say his last name was Johnson.
No, that'd be good enough.
And
he actually recalled that name.
Yeah. I told Al this. It came to me while we were talking. He did not bring it up, mention it, or anything else.
Well, to his recollection, all he remembers is him and his brother.
Correct.
But that's
No, wait. He did say there were others that jumped ship.
He does say that. He thinks there were several others.
They seemed to fall into a void and disappear. They don't know what happened to them.
Yeah, he calls that space, and the other Larry calls that space limbo.
Yeah.
That when they jumped off, they went into this limbo area.
Right, but one did make it through and also landed at Montauk. I pointed this out. I don't know if it came to me in a vision while talking with him or what. He did say that there was a man on board that ship by that name.
Well, yeah, well, let's start from the beginning here, because what you're about to tell us, Larry, I mean, it's going to stretch the imagination.
It's going to stretch it to the unbelievable extent.
It really is, of anybody who's going to listen to this interview right here. So how confident are you, personally, that what you're about to tell us today is really real?
About 100%.
No 99%?
I doubt it now.
And
I've been dealing with it too many years. Too many things have happened in one sense that cannot be explained. Too much memory has returned. Everything.
And it's been a long process for you, hasn't it?
It's about 15 years.
And
I'm still remembering things.
Has it been 15 years that you started remembering everything, or 15 years that you've been involved in these programs?
15 years that I've been remembering things, and they've just been coming out piece by piece. And like you said the other day, yesterday on the phone, that the mind is like a piece of Swiss cheese. There's a lot of holes that need filled in.
Right, so you remember things, but you only remember parts of it.
Right. Not total recall, like in the movie, which is a darn good movie. That chair reminded me a lot of things in that movie, and I cannot explain why.
So you think there's a possibility that Total Recall was based on a real story?
I would say so. A lot of movies out here are based on real events. The public just doesn't know it.
Yeah, I wonder why they do that, though.
Trying to get knowledge out, for one. Trying to get the truth out, and also I believe they're prepping us for what's coming. Well, especially the space movies, alien movies, encounter movies, all these things.
Boy, there's sure been a lot of those lately, haven't there?
There's a tremendous amount of them.
I know, I mean, if you look, you can see pictures of the Zeta Reticuli guys everywhere. Cartoons, little bumper stickers. It's a very common image right now.
Yeah. I've been amazed, and I pointed this out to my wife. I know we're kind of getting off track here.
That's okay.
I pointed this out to my wife all the time when we watch a lot of those special shows on encounters, abductions, and all that. The greatest majority of the people come up with the same figure, the same type alien.
Oh,
you ever notice that?
You talking about the abduction movies?
Yeah. No. The encounter movies or shows on TV that try to bring the truth out. Like on Discovery Channel, Learning Channel, whatever. The people always draw almost the same image of the alien that has abducted them.
Yeah, that being the grays with the big eyes, right?
Yeah. You ever wondered about that?
Well, I think you go beyond wondering because it's just so common. You know, why do they keep using the same image? Maybe they're doing it because people now recognize that those are the guys that are supposed to be doing the abductions.
Well, they are some of them.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other aliens out there too abducting. Did you know that?
I personally can't say I know anything until I've had personal experience.
I can understand that.
You know,
there is a reason for what I call that type of madness as to why they all draw the same thing. First of all, yes, the little grays are abducting humans in mass quantities and experimenting on them. Secondly, because our own secret government is also abducting humans on their spaceships and experimenting on them. And part of the deal to return them to Earth is they can come back a couple different ways. Either with full memory, which nobody wants because they are so petrified with what has gone on, and who in the world is going to believe our own sick government abducts humans and experiments on them?
Now, do they do this sometimes under the guise of looking like an alien?
No.
Our government?
Nope.
So they just look like
you and I.
I'll share something with you. I interviewed a fellow by the name of Stuart Swerdlow, who said he was one of the Montauk boys. And when he was young, he got abducted on a regular basis. He said initially they all looked like aliens. However, after a while, he figured out they weren't, that they were our government, and then they stopped putting on the guise of being an alien.
Reconfiguration. Also, he was programmed to believe they looked like aliens.
Even at that young age?
Yep. I know because I was part of that, too. In fact, I was called aboard a ship one time, and all the people on these ships are people that's there for what I call the duration. They can never go home because they were talked into doing this, thinking it was going to be such a wonderful thing, but the only catch was they had to be eliminated on Earth. So they were killed off one way or another. And the family members, loved ones, everybody thinks they actually died. Sickness, accident, you know, whatever. There's many ways you can show a legalized death. And then once aboard the ship, they were there forever. And these are experimental ships. And once they place not too long ago, probably a year or two ago, when we went out to eat.
He's got that call waiting.
Okay, I'm back.
That's okay.
We went out to this restaurant to eat, and sitting there eating, and all of a sudden, the one I call David Caldoun emerged. And I sat there and talked with her. And it like just scared her to death. And he told her, I mean, David is a hardcore, calloused, how should I put it?
You know, this is your alternative personality, or the other person who's in your body, in a sense, right?
Well, I'm right now getting mixed feelings on who he really is. But anyway, we will just say, yes, he's an entity within me. And he emerged sitting there at the table. And he's cold, callous, cruel. And he sat there and just talked to her and told her what he thought, and that how he could care less about her, the kids, or anything else. But because of me and my desires and wants, he was just letting her know that he was going to protect her, the kids, and everyone around. And the grandkids, you know, the whole works. That to him, it didn't make a hill of beans, put it mildly.
How long ago was this?
Oh, probably a year or two ago at least.
That's all?
Yeah. That's when I would say at least 2 years, because that's when I think David was trying to take control and come out totally and stay out.
How did this name David Calhoun come about?
In the very beginning, when I started getting memory returning of how I was created, what they did to me, I thought he was the entity that they had created from my DNA structure on a computer and had inserted into me, and that the programmer just gave him the name of David Caldoun.
Caldoun.
Yeah, C-A-L-D-O-O-N-E. And that's who he was when he emerged and when they wanted him. And I more or less wrote piggyback. That's the only way I know how to explain it. Because at that particular given time when he emerged in the restaurant, I slowly slid like behind him on his back when he came forward. I witnessed everything, heard everything, saw everything, and when I was sitting there thinking, man, this is neat. I like this. I don't have to do anything, you know. I wasn't scared in the least.
Were you doing that from a soul perspective or a spirit perspective, or were there two of you there physically?
There was two of us there physically, because she even said I changed slightly with my features. Not completely where she could no longer recognize me, but my eyes became very hard and cold, icy, and the voice changed drastically. And it was, to me, it was kind of a wild experiment, or a wild situation. I kind of enjoyed it, and I had the feeling that that's how it was whenever he did emerge. And that's why I was never afraid of anything. I never had the fear, because I knew he was in control and there was nothing he could not do, and that he was totally invincible.
And he was also protecting you.
Well, he had to protect me because he lives within me.
Right. And therefore he would protect those who were dear to you as well.
Yeah, he did. He decided to, but he didn't want to. He didn't care. But because of me, he would.
He didn't have a choice.
He didn't have a choice.
Wow. Did he care about anything?
Nope. He was created without any feelings or any what I call the good feelings or emotions.
Oh.
So now, he could also be as suave as could be. He could be as charismatic as could be if he had to. He was that versatile.
And do you feel you know him real well?
I have gotten to know him a lot better, yes. And in the beginning, when I first realized and found out about him, I was also petrified. In fear of him completely taking over. You know, I didn't want to lose myself.
Your identity.
Yeah, I didn't want to lose my identity and just be floating around in my mind somewhere.
Right.
And not be able to get out. So that's what I was afraid of. And then I realized, wait a minute, that sucker's in me. You know, what's he got a right to tell me what to do? That's just how I look at it.
So did you find when you were forceful with him that he subsided a little bit?
He still didn't listen to me. He did, for some reason. some reason he did on protecting my family. Why, I don't know. Other than that, he's still his hard, cold self, even to me, but he knows that without me, he's nothing. He cannot survive.
So who do you think directs him?
In the beginning, he was programmed to recognize to certain call signs, letters, whatever, like I was.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I just found out recently, we watch TV a lot, and they have all these ads on music and everything, and I all of a sudden have a lot of problems with the music of the 50s and 60s. Even though I loved it, I grew up in that era. But I've since found out they used that music, the beat of it and a lot of it, for programming.
That's interesting. One of the big areas at Montauk had to deal with music. In fact, they had a big sound studio down there.
Yeah, you can program someone real easy with music. And one in particular was Elvis Presley's You Are On My Mind.
Oh, no. I like that song.
And that one, I just realized, was his trigger to come out. And that way he was on top and I was underneath.
So when you heard that song, that did it for you?
That's the only thing I can figure out, yeah. That's the trigger, one of the triggers they used to bring him out.
Huh.
You Are Always On My Mind. Stop and think about it. It's his.
Wow.
You're also going to find out I insert a lot of humor in all this stuff because I have to
I think you have to.
Otherwise, I'd lose my sanity.
That's right. You know, and I've been getting pretty serious about this for the last 3 months. And even with Al, we have to laugh every now and then.
Yeah.
Because you can get so serious and so into it.
And I think I have also been too serious with it with my wife and all the discussions we've had. I realize that too, because I really get into it deep and bring out a lot of theological thinking.
Mm-hmm. Does this bother her, though?
Oh, yeah. It has to. I know it does.
Now, that incident at the restaurant when David Calhoun appeared, was she upset when you finally came back?
Oh, she was. I could see the fear in her eyes.
Really?
Because I could still see her. I had all functions except. Oh no, I should not say I had all functions. I had all awareness.
It's like you were watching a movie in a sense.
Yeah, I'm sitting back. Yeah, I'm back up there in the third row of the balcony or something, and witnessing it all. It's fantastic. Yet I could, and I knew she was hurt and scared, but I knew there was nothing I could do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think we need to get to the nature of who this David Calhoun person is and how David got into you. And I think talking yesterday on the phone, you said that this is part of a super warrior program.
Right.
Right?
Coming under the, oh boy, there goes my mind again.
Uh-oh.
It's under MK Ultra.
Oh, yeah.
It's another program under that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, I can't think of it now. I'll have to wait till it comes to me and then bring it up later. Anyway, part of the programming, not all warriors had a entity inserted into them. I was one of the, I guess you could say, unfortunate that did.
But you're saying that there was a conscious program out there to create a group of people who would be deemed super warriors.
Yes, which they have, near as I can figure out, the super warrior went to the, well, my son and daughter, son in particular, run into some in Germany. They're called Icemen now.
Oh, they changed the name?
Well, the Army guys just call them that because they are so cold and calculating, cruel, and they don't mess with them. They don't get around them.
So that's the nickname they give
right now.
The guys, Icemen.
Yeah. He said that they just called them that. Whether that's their actual names now or I have no idea.
So where did you get this term super warrior from?
It just come to me.
You made that up, right?
No, well, I don't know if I made it up or it come with some of the knowledge that I've gained through all of this, because they were so sure that when they traced our memory, we would never, ever remember. So they talked freely in front of us all the time.
And that's when they grabbed you, though, right? So they would grab you And then while you were working with them, they would talk freely, or
Oh yeah, openly. They would tricks on us. They would throw guys at us to see how we would react to them. Have guys, mess with us, try and shove us around, all kind of stuff, just to see what we would do, to see if our programming was still staying intact, working, or whatever. It was so sad because we ended up killing so many of them. And they didn't care. They had no regards to human life.
Who is the they when you talk about they?
I call them the people that working within the structure of the secret government of the United States of America.
And is this a huge structure?
Oh, it's mammoth. It's everywhere. And you never know who's in it, who's involved in it, what political people, what big business people, whoever. It is so secret. It's, I call it a circles network. Okay, you know what the Olympic rings look like.
Right.
This is much larger. Talk hundreds of rings.
Mm-hmm.
And within each ring you have its own structure, its own people. And even within that ring, there's a lot of people that have no idea what the other people are doing. And then these other rings fit in there, connected to it, but yet that groups have no idea the same way. That way nobody knows anyone, or not supposed to know anyone, and definitely not supposed to know who's doing what.
It's kind of like the mafia. Yeah, like the mafia or any of these other...
Yeah, that protects them.
But ultimately, there's always someone who's got to know everything that's going on.
There's one man. We met him. That was, I believe, right toward the end of any connection I ever had. But anyway...
I would say this man is someone that the general person would never even know who he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
I mean, I'm not going to even ask you to say his name, but...
I don't know it.
Let's just say if you did, we probably wouldn't even recognize the name.
No. It's probably an alias anyway. They all went by aliases.
Mm-hmm.
They all created their own name that they wanted to give.
How did these guys get caught up in such a sinister thing?
Ego. They are all on one hell of an ego trip. They all believe that this is for the just cause. And there's a lot of people in it that once they got into it realized this is wrong. We made a mistake. But you can't get out. There's only one way out.
Death?
Death. You'd be surprised how many deaths over the United States take place that are killings.
From this group?
Yeah, elimination. They have sweepers, they have, you would not believe some of the terminology coming up in a ring of people that are just there to not only seek abductions, but to eliminate people.
So you think there's probably thousands of those, or
yeah,
more than that, going on just here in the United States?
Yeah, just in the United States.
Huh.
It's amazing. It is so far-fetched.
So when you were actually involved in this program, they threw some of the, I don't know who the guys were they threw at you, but what they would say, hey, see if you can take this guy?
Basically, and in particular one Mason I recall very clearly that we went was going as a team, 10-man team, and you always go through a cleaning room, scrub down, eliminate all human odors, perfumes, aftershave lotion, everything. And we was lined up there waiting to get in, and all of a sudden these big bruisers come up and started harassing us. And most of us were all about the same size. Why that fits, I have no idea. But I'm 5'8", well, kind of overweight now, about 160, but then was probably about 120, 130.
That's all.
And that's about average for most of ones I remember.
So you're not a big guy?
No.
But you're able to take these bruisers out?
We didn't even have to use physical force. We didn't want to.
Mental?
We could have done it mental.
And are you saying you actually did do it mentally?
We killed every one of them. That's when we went at them. That's when they realized it had been set up. They weren't told the truth as to what was going to happen.
You're talking about the guys that you took out?
Yep.
Wow.
There was 10 of them. They were big bruisers, and we handled them like they're little kids.
So why do you think they did that?
To see if our programming was still intact and working in our... That's the only reason. And we would get so mad at them We'd cuss them out, but we couldn't go out of physical the blocks they had implanted in us. We couldn't stop it, but it would make us so angry because they would test us time and time and time again like this.
Well, let's go back to the Super Warrior thing so that people get an idea.
That's part of the Super Warrior.
Right. But I'd like to take the audience to how you became a Super Warrior.
The programming began, I know, after tech school when I was at Biloxi, Mississippi.
So that's 65 somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I went there in summer of '64 and was there until February '66.
Okay, so...
And I was also set up for Vietnam on 2 or 3 other occasions, but my civilian officer kept redlining me, which I found out much later. And I also feel that's because I wasn't quite ready. He had no awareness of it, but he was just redlining me because he didn't want me to go, and he was probably set up to do that because programming wasn't complete yet. That's the only thing I can figure out.
Okay.
But anyway...
how'd they do it?
I'm not sure how they did it. That memory has not come back. But I ended up going to someplace in Louisiana just east of New Orleans. And that's just down the road from Biloxi, Mississippi.
Right.
And through all the process of setting me up with the programming, I also firmly believe that's where the entity was put in me, which was a 3-month process.
Now, is this entity David Caldoun?
I believe so. I still think that's the name they was giving him. I don't think, well, I got a couple other options, but that's neither here nor there with this. There's a possibility during my death stretch when David was being inserted, there's a possibility that this David Caldoun walked into me. You know about walk-ins.
Well, we have a couple of people that we've interviewed on the CD who all say they're walk-ins.
Yeah, and it's a possibility when he walked in, but because of the super conditions of the mind, he got trapped and can't do anything.
Well, it's always been, Larry, that when they walked in, though, the other guy walked out.
Yeah, but see, my mind had been drained. It was down on a computer.
Okay, let's go to that. You're saying that there was a certain process which was done to you.
They downloaded my entire mind onto a computer.
Onto a computer.
Then they stopped my heart. Then with the probes had already been inserted, one in the back of my neck, one in the middle of my back, and one at the lower back.
So were you in a hospital type of thing, or?
From what I can tell, it was far from a hospital. I mean, they didn't rely too much on cleanliness.
But what did it look like physically inside?
Truthfully?
Yeah.
An old damn warehouse.
No kidding.
Yeah, especially where the tanks were.
Was it above or below ground?
Yeah, well, from what I can recall and seeing that my soul hover above with all the rest of them, it looked like just a big old dirty empty warehouse. Because of the framework above and the skylights and everything else.
And it wasn't surrounded by a chain link fence or anything?
I have no idea what was outside.
Wow. So here you are, you're in a warehouse.
Once the mind was emptied, once the probes were inserted, and in fact, they just had me laying there on a gurney. There was 2 guys there, and I know I wrote all this down somewhere, and I was looking for it before you called, and I can't find it, because names also come to me. But I wrote this down about these 2 guys standing there. One's a newbie, as I call him, and the other guy's training him. And my body is going into horrible convulsions and everything else once they start the computer and inserting the entity. And the guy's scared, and he says, what's going to happen to him? And he says, well, most of them just die, and that's the end of it, no big deal. And but something happened with the body contortions and everything else, and you're making real weird guttural sounds and everything else. I'm not aware of it. Somehow I know what's going on, which is kind of double talk, I know. But something happens, and he says, well, this one's going to make it. I guess he's going to be okay. And after the process of uploading the entity into my mind, they then wheel the cart into another room, which is probably a little cleaner, where all the tanks are. And set the body in the tank of some kind of liquid. It's not water, like water. It's some kind of a liquid. And with all these probes and attachments and everything onto the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it lays in this water for 3 months.
Are you totally immersed?
Yeah. This is the birthing process.
How do you breathe?
You don't have to.
It's sort of like you're in the
You're not breathing.
the womb.
Your heart's still not beating in a sense. You're being reborn.
Huh.
You're being born. It's like the womb.
Yeah.
And again, that's when the soul is floating around all above. It's confused. It doesn't understand. It knows it should not be out of the body. My soul.
The Larry soul.
Right. And it's encased in pure gold.
Oh, really?
All the souls are encased in pure gold.
The soul is encased in pure gold.
Yeah.
I mean, so they took your soul out of your body?
No, they can't touch the soul. I want to make that perfectly clear since you brought it up.
Okay.
They would love to be able to figure out a way to take the soul out of a human being. And as far as everything I was involved in, they could never do that. They could never touch the soul, and that would make them so angry because they wanted that so bad. Now, maybe by now they have found a way. I do not know. But everything I was involved in, that was their main goal, because if they knew they could get your soul, then they had you 100%.
Wow. Now you're saying, though, the soul was encased in a gold case.
Yeah.
So, but where was this gold case physically?
It was floating around up around the ceiling.
The gold case was floating?
The soul.
Right, but where was the gold case?
The soul was within this gold ring. It was encased within it.
Was that a physical thing?
To me it was. I could see it clearly. I could see them all, and even right now I can see them all floating around up there.
Even right now?
Yeah.
It's just in your mind's eye?
Yeah, I can see them.
So
beautiful. You cannot imagine the beauty of them, how they look.
Of a soul?
Yeah. It's perfect.
It's perfect, but you couldn't go anywhere.
No, because they knew they should not have been out of that body.
Right.
So they were confused. They couldn't leave. So you weren't totally physically dead.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where your soul should have gone on to the next world.
Still connected.
Yeah.
And so you recall, from your soul's perspective, kind of seeing what was going on during these 3 months?
Both ways. I see it through the soul, and I see it through my own mind.
Mm-hmm.
Figure that out. I can't. I do not understand it. Everything is like I'm standing off the side watching.
Mm-hmm.
You know, disconnected. I guess maybe that's how you protect yourself.
Sort of watching a movie in a sense.
Yeah.
And
the more you watch, the more you're fascinated.
Yeah, and would you say you sort of lose your perspective of time at that point? Does time go away?
There's no recollection of time whatsoever.
You're just in the now, the present.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. So here you are, you're birthing for 3 months.
Well, David is.
David is birthing. You're still up there. And let's go back. David, was he generated by a computer?
He was created on a computer by a master programmer. Mm-hmm. I know what the man looks like and everything. In fact, David killed him later.
David killed his maker?
Yep. That's another story.
That's an interesting story, I'm sure.
Yeah. There were things this programmer put in David that he personally, secretly, was experimenting with.
Mm-hmm.
And David was able to evolve much, much quicker than normal.
But was David a soul at that point?
No, David does not have a soul. David is just a created being. An entity.
Is he a spirit, though?
He cannot survive out of a human body. Not even a spirit. I wouldn't even call him a spirit.
What is he?
He was created from my DNA structure on a computer. Don't tell me how they do it. I have no idea. But the man programmed into him what he wanted. Mm-hmm. It was all supposed to be cut and dried a certain way. Mm-hmm. But he secretly did different things with each one to experiment to see how they would evolve. He was the only one that knew it.
Okay, now I know you don't know this answer, but let's speculate. How many of these types of people do you think there are out there?
Thousands.
Maybe even beyond that?
Yeah, even in this one area where I was, there was hundreds of these tanks.
There were hundreds of tanks?
Yeah.
Were they, again, all in the warehouse or below ground?
In this area. Same room. It's one huge, gigantic room.
Wow.
So once the birthing took place at the end of the 3 months, the body was removed and basically brought to life just like you would anyone. I mean, they didn't spank him on the butt or anything like that, but they kind of, it seems like it's almost like performing CPR. No, that's not right. I better not say, because I don't have total recall on how they got him to start breathing.
Okay.
And from that point on, once he was born, he then was taken to school to learn.
So when did Larry's soul, or your soul?
I'm not sure. Well, as soon as the body started breathing, that's when the soul went back into it.
Okay.
Now, when they re-uploaded my mind back in, I don't know. All I know is that it was done. And the mind has to be totally empty for them to insert the entity. Otherwise, there can be a crossover between the two, and they'll get them all mixed up, and that's what they do not want. They want to keep us totally separate.
So there seems to be a difference between the mind and the soul, and...
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Does the soul encompass the
The soul is separate by itself.
By its own self. Does it think on its own, or...
Well...
Hard to say, isn't it?
Yeah. All I know is that it exists. And when you die permanently, it leaves and goes to the next world.
And what happens to the mind, though? All the information in the mind?
Gone.
But does the soul remember?
Well, I can only go by another experience. Yeah, you take the knowledge with you to the next world. You retain it all. You even see what's back here. But you're in such a total bliss, it doesn't affect you to want to come back.
It's not that big of an issue, right?
No.
At that point.
No, because you're where you've always wanted to be.
You're back home.
You're in your own world that you want.
So why are we here, Larry, in the first place?
Good question. We live many lives. I totally believe in reincarnation. You live many lifespans, and that's why I think some people have been able to cross over and remember past lives.
Many people have.
Yeah, and I call them ones that take the soul. Well, yeah, take is the right word, because I call them takers. They're a beautiful humanoid race of people, and they can take you alive, or they can wait and take you after you die, or however they determine if you've had enough lives, lived enough lives, and type of lives you've had, to whether to go on to the next level, which is, there are 7 levels of heaven, and they determine which level you go on to live for eternity.
Are there any levels of hell?
Truthfully, from everything I have experienced, everything I have put together, there is a hell, but it's not for humans. I know that goes totally against the Christian doctrine, and I still struggle with this. But from what I know and have seen and have been through, I say hell is simply for the evil spirits.
And the evil spirits don't inhabit human bodies?
They can break out and, yes, invade a human body.
Oh, okay, but they're not like our human souls that you're talking about.
No. These are horrible creatures, and some people, I guess that's where you have some where the Catholics perform exorcisms and things like that. The evil spirits can definitely invade a human body.
Well, I would say that would be good news for most of us.
What's that? That there's no hell?
That there's no hell, because...
But that does not throw out the entire structure of the human race and protecting it and preserving it and keeping it stable, that if that truth ever became known, everybody would just turn rampant and do whatever they want, knowing that they can go on to heaven?
That's...
See my point?
No, Larry, I tell you what, I have heard that argument time and time again, and I will tell you, and I haven't shared a lot of my personal on this CD, but I don't believe there's a hell. Now, me personally, that doesn't mean I'm going to go out and kill people and rob stores and do anything bad. I am, as you say, good because I choose to be good.
I agree with you and understand what you're saying.
Right.
But there are a certain element of people out here that if they realize that factor as a truth, they definitely would.
Well, but they're still going to get caught up by the police and go to jail. I mean, that's going to be their temporary hell.
The police can't control the population now.
Yeah. But do you think these guys even believe in heaven or hell in the first place?
Nah.
So
they don't care one way or another.
It's really almost irrelevant. That is the common argument. And
I will state this: a friend of mine where I used to work, very devout Christian man, and he and I had long discussions about this very same thing. And he looked me right in the eye one day and he said, "I'm going to tell you right now, if I knew for a fact there was not a hell, I could be the most brutal bastard you could ever meet in your life and go out and do whatever goddamn thing I wanted." That's exactly how he put it, and that's coming from the mouths of a Christian.
See, he's. I would say he's being run by fear at that point. Then.
Sure, most Christians are.
So you think it's important for fear to be there?
I think
to keep everybody in line.
Again, from my knowledge of what I've been through and experienced, and some of the things I've been told, I think this began centuries and centuries ago. That we humans are a transplant here on Earth. We're like an ant colony. We're here for experimentation and growth of ourselves. And all of this was put into effect to keep fear in man, so he would stay in line, so he could be controlled.
Who do you think put us here then?
We come from another planet.
Any idea?
That was probably going dead.
Yeah.
Another
long time ago.
Long centuries and centuries and centuries ago.
But Larry, if you look at our population, I mean, say Chinese and African American and Caucasian, there's many different strands. It appears almost that there were many different experiments.
Sure.
Not just one where they put a bunch of people here.
Yeah.
Don't you think it was many, many, many?
Yeah. Well, look at the different type animals and reptiles and birds and everything you have all over the world.
Millions, billions.
And like down in Australia in particular, they say those don't fit. Period. They were all brought here from someplace.
So I think now our discussion is on speculation, right? Not off of any direct knowledge that you have?
Nothing that I picked up in past times, I don't know. It's just, for some reason, I have a tremendous amount of knowledge. I have no idea where it comes from.
So it's good to have these sort of free-based conversations then.
Yeah, I think so.
To see what comes up.
Comparing notes, see how others think.
Okay. Well, let's take it back to where you were reborn. You were a new guy. What happened after that?
Once David was complete and I was reinserted, the training program was over, a strange thing happened. I was standing there talking with this guy, little guy, and I'm 5'8", so he was only about 5'3" or 5'4". Jolly little guy. And he was telling me that all the training was over now and everything was done. And I noticed his hand was behind his back and didn't pay much attention to it. All of a sudden, he quickly brought that hand up and squirted something directly in my face and nose and mouth. The most foul-tasting stuff you could ever imagine. And I was gagging in a few minutes. I was ready to tromp him. And he was just standing there laughing about it. And I says, "What in the hell did you do? What is that garbage?"
Yeah.
And he just laughed. And he says, "Oh, that's just to protect you." He says, "You don't have to worry about ever getting sick. We can't afford to have you guys sick."
Was he a humanoid?
Nope, just another guy.
No, this 5'4" guy, was he a human like you and I?
Yeah, he was just another human being.
Another guy.
He was
okay.
working there. That was part of his job, whatever it was. And
so did you ever get sick after that?
No.
Even to this day?
I've never had a cold in my life.
No kidding.
No.
No cancer, no.
Well, I just last year, I think I hit a point, whether it was the breakdown in 85 on or somewhere back in there where they finally just quit treating me or whatever. And I started, and then it still took a long time before I started even having any kind of sicknesses or anything. And even now I still don't have many. Usually if I get something, it's real heavy stuff. Just like that cancerous lesion on the back of my neck, pneumonia. I've never had a common cold.
Oh, so you do actually have cancer right now?
Well, according to the doctor, they got it all.
So skin cancer?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, so he said that by him doing that, you're not going to get sick, and so for many, many years you did not get sick.
No, never.
Okay, now
I had what you would call psychological sicknesses.
No, that's different.
And I think that was because of my mental condition. With all this stuff hidden within me, I was starting to wear down and couldn't take it and just willed myself sick in some way. But every time I go to the doctor, they could never, ever find anything.
Now, during these 3 months where you were being birthed,
yeah,
didn't your wife wonder where you were?
No, that's before I was married.
Before you married. Did anybody wonder where you were?
I probably inserted a clone.
Oh, okay.
I do recall on several occasions when I was on base there that we would get into discussions and we would talk about our mental condition and how bad it was getting for no reason. Would be so upset at times, would get angry, all kind of things. And I'm thinking, why the hell should I be this way? This is a good job. I've got it made here. I don't have to do hardly anything. It was easy.
Yeah.
And yet, for some reason, I was going off the mental end for no reason. Could not ever figure out why. Well, now I know. It was all part of this stuff that was going on.
It was just mentally hard for you to accept, I guess.
Yeah. By that time, I probably realized the lies I'd been told and was, realizing I'm in serious trouble here.
Right. Well, I guess what happened, though, for a number of years, you lived a normal life.
Supposedly, I thought.
Supposedly, you got married, you had kids.
Yeah.
But all the while, you were being used.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Okay, let's sort of go to some of the secret projects that you recall, that you remembered of. What's one of the first ones that you think you were used in? I
have no idea what was first, what fits where, or anything.
You just have the memories, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take your pick. Going to...
Well, let's go with the Civil War, because I think our listeners are going to find that real interesting. We did talk with Larry James. He said that one of the projects that he worked on with the Time Control Program was to re-engineer the outcome of the Civil War.
Right. The South won the war, flat out.
That's what Larry said.
They pulverized the North Army.
You know, when I tell people that, they think I'm crazy.
Yeah. No, it wasn't even a match.
Well, was it pretty quick?
Yeah.
So
very. Probably within a year.
The South actually won the war.
Oh, yeah. Hands down.
And so somewhere, somehow, there was a decision made to change that.
Had to.
Okay.
And because our entire structure was completely different than what we see and know today.
Right. See, that's what's going to be hard, because now the reality that you recalled, let's just say in the 60s and all that stuff, was that a reality of the North winning? Well,
that's what I was going to tell you when you first called today and when we was talking about this yesterday.
Right.
The way I figured it out, I was born in 1942, so I grew up in the 40s, 50s. And the only thing I can recall and think of how it worked is, during my growing up time, we was probably taught and explained and knew about the Civil War and the South winning and everything. That's the way everything was.
Mm-hmm.
People just went on, just like today.
Yeah. It's not a big deal today, really.
Yeah. And whatever the life structure was, who knows? Along comes this program. They round us up. Now, first of all, I don't believe I was ever at Montauk. I don't believe I went through there at all. I went through somewhere else.
Well, okay, Larry did say there were many other places.
In fact, I think I went through down in, probably for that mission, I think I went through somewhere down in the Virginias. They'd have another time station down in there. So anyway, I was chosen. I was put with a lady to go back as a husband and wife, and I was to be a Southern officer. And I was given certain, of course, we had all information about the battles. Mm-hmm. And I was to plant false information on these battles to throw them off so they would be defeated instead of winning, mm-hmm. which wasn't hard to do. How should I say it? Military officers are arrogant people, and they'll believe about anything. They'll accept certain things coming from certain people in certain ways.
Okay. Do you remember this woman who you were with?
I know I wrote all this stuff down, but I can't find it. We were to go to this big ball that all the officers were going to be at.
Right.
And we went in our finery, my military uniform for the South and the whole works. Mm-hmm. And I hobnobbed with all these other officers. And, like all military people, we talked about the upcoming battles and everything else. And I just inserted certain misinformation.
While you're at the ball or
right.
the party?
And because I knew which officers to pick on. I was given all this data.
Right. Now, do you recall any of the names of the officers, or do you recall any of the data that you gave them that was wrong?
No. Not really. Those things were still missing. Mm-hmm. So I planted all this information. I gave them all this misinformation, I should say. Mm-hmm. And later, during strategy sessions, I even pointed it out on maps to them. Mm-hmm. And which they had given us, how should I say?
Did they give you the maps?
No, I was in the meetings with them. They had them all laid out there with all the generals and subordinate officers and everybody. Because it was going to be one major push.
Okay.
And I just gave them information that I said I was able to gather because of my position within the military ranks, and switched some facts on them, which they didn't know. And so they made some changes, moved their personnel at different positions, and that was the downfall from there on through.
How would they know who you were in the first place? Because you just appeared.
Somehow I fit within the structure of whether I went back and took the place of an officer. That's the only thing I figured out. I went back and took the place of another officer.
Yeah, they must have taken the other officer and inserted you there.
Yeah, or maybe I even took him out. I don't know, right. Which would have been a simple thing to do.
But you would have had to have looked just like him, though.
That's right.
Could they have done that?
Could have been mind over matter, where they thought they was looking at him.
You had that kind of power?
Sure.
Huh. Wow.
By then I did, yeah.
Okay.
I don't really want to say me. I'd rather say David.
Yeah.
He possessed all these abilities.
Weren't there more people involved than just the two?
Her and I?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
On this project?
It took quite a few to get all this organized and to get them to really make all these major changes that needed to be changed to so that they'd end up losing. It was a major deal.
Did you have to go through a training period to make sure the way you spoke was correct and the way you looked was correct and that?
Yeah, probably about an hour.
That's all?
That's all it took. He was so good he could sit down and learn any language fluently in a couple hours.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And have...
So he could come up with a southern dialect, and that would be simple.
So it was really David who was doing this?
I think so.
Yeah.
yeah. Because he, like I said, I want to say that he's the one that had all these abilities and talents.
Okay. But while David was present, you were kind of on the sideline, but still viewing what was going on.
Yeah.
Right?
Still witnessing it all. And the function was to get us out of the picture. I was to be involved in one of the battles and be killed. And which took place. And then, of course, my widow just, you know, in her distraught state, just disappeared.
Killed herself or something?
No, she just left. And
right.
No one took it as anything wrong because of her distraught condition of finding out her husband had been killed in the war.
Well, I tell you, that would sure be good to know the name of that person you were when you went back there.
Yeah, I would love to have that memory.
But that's
to dig back in the archives and see if they really existed, or you know.
Do you remember any of the imagery of what you saw back then?
Oh, it was a beautiful mansion, southern mansion.
Right.
Just almost identical to what you would see in the movies.
Okay. And
the ball was about as regal as you could get for the era, and it was more modern than what we even think for back then.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in weaponry. You know, you think of the muskets, ball and cap and all this, but they had a lot more modern weaponry than that. And, of course, now it's being noted in the Civil War era that they did have more sophisticated weaponry.
And in what sense was that, Larry?
Oh, I can't think offhand, but they had more than just the ball and caps.
So you were kind of impressed with what you saw back there?
Yeah. I mean, the battle itself, strangely, I knew I was going to be killed, but it didn't bother me. The only thing is I got madder than hell because they took so damn long to get me back and bring me back.
Oh, so you were dead for a while.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, let's go back. How do they take you from, let's just say this was 1960, what year was it, by the way?
I would have no idea. It probably was at least in the 70s.
Okay, let's just say it's 1970-something. Here you are in Virginia. How do they actually take you back to that date and time and place?
I have no idea because we never got into the time travel itself as to how it's manipulated, how it's done on. It's all by computer.
Right.
You just go into the vortexes.
Okay. You go into the vortex. Do you remember actually seeing a vortex?
Oh, I went through them all the time.
Okay. Did you ever see any of the equipment around that was generating the vortex?
Yeah, like I told you yesterday, the one room in particular had just rows of consoles with people sitting at it, and the walls was just a mass of computers.
Right.
And we entered from the middle of the room,
mm-hmm.
from the cleaning chamber,
mm-hmm.
and once we was cleaned and had all of our clothes and gear on, we entered in this doorway and walked down between all the consoles and everything.
Right.
And people would just praise us constantly because of what we were and things we were going to do. And the vortex was out in front of them, so many feet away, just a big circular item, and was just a massive, raw, pure, harnessed energy.
Was it white in color, white,
kind
yellow?
Kind of a white, silvery.
White, silver.
Yeah, it's not like in the movies where they show it like a liquid or anything like that.
Yeah.
Where it bubbles out or anything else.
I'm thinking of Stargate, that movie.
Yeah. Now, the gate itself was similar to that.
It was round?
Yeah, but not quite designed that way. And the energy just flowed outwardly, which, you know, because you're going out, it would.
Right.
And we loved it. We called that soaring the vort. We loved floating the vort because you were in your own bottled form. You weren't in the time shuttle or anything, and you actually got to travel through it yourself in bodily form.
And so to all those people there in the operations end of it, you were a hero.
In a sense, yeah. And I think most time they knew they had to know what mission was going on because it all had to be coordinated.
Right.
Everything had to be in its proper place. Each individual had to be doing the correct thing, or we're lost forever.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened. A lot of teams went out and was lost. Couldn't get them back. Or within this vortex, you've got fingers, offshoots.
Oh, really?
And if you get off into one of them, you're gone forever, too.
Now, how would you know where the offshoot is.
You just stay in the main chamber, in the main tunnel itself. It's like a wormhole.
Right.
And it's big and round, and you can see the offshoots coming out. But you're flying through this thing at you know, billions of miles a second, wherever they send you, and spatially into space.
Did you have to keep your
And from what I can remember, I don't think so, because I love the sensation it gave you going through this, and especially the ones going to outer space.
Mm-hmm.
You could also see the universes flashing by,
wow,
in all their brilliance and beauty. It was so fascinating. But it only took milliseconds, you know.
Well, how did you avoid the offshoots, though?
You could, like I said, you could see the fingers coming up with the smaller tunnels going out.
Right.
But somehow some people would just get sucked up into them for, I don't maybe that was the early stages before they was perfected, but I never had any problem with them.
Yeah, so you would see them come and go.
To me, I could see them flashing by, coming up.
Right, wow.
Just like if you was driving down a road and all of a sudden another road took off to the right or to the left or whatever.
You just look at it at the side of your eye and say,
yeah, and just make sure you stay in the middle so you don't get pulled off to either side.
So when you went, say, to the Civil War era, did you see all of this beautiful outer space stuff?
No, that I don't recall. Mm-hmm. I don't think so, because I don't think it would be there.
Okay.
Because if you're going back in time, I think I have no memory of what it looked like, but something tells me that would be entirely different. I can't explain it.
Okay, so I know this is going to be hard to answer, but how many of these trips do you think you made?
I think I only made the one. I went down for a specific reason, planted the information on changing certain battle strategies, plans, everything.
So you think you only made one time travel trip?
I think so.
That you can recall?
Yeah, that's all I can recall.
So all the other things, though, would be space travel, right? Because you told me yesterday you went to some other planets and things like that.
Space travel, or just going to other bases and installations to do different stuff.
Okay.
A lot of it was space travel, even flying the spaceships, the small fighters.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you were successful. You got killed, I guess, somehow. They send a team of people in, or how'd you get back?
They pulled me out.
They just pulled you out?
Yeah, they stay locked onto you. They can track you.
Mm-hmm.
And once I went down and all bodily function stopped, that's when they was to pull me out.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it made me angry because the guy he didn't do it quick enough for my estimation.
How long do you think you were dead?
I don't know. Longer than I wanted to be.
Well, you know what you're saying, Larry, is that we have the technology and the ability to bring people back from the dead.
Sure. They did it to us all the time because I don't know if because they needed to keep, they needed to keep us healthy and they needed to keep us around because of our abilities. All they was wanting to do. How did they bring you back to life? The only thing I can recall on one particular situation, whether it was this one or not, I can't remember. As I mentioned yesterday, where they had this liquid-like stuff that was electrically charged.
Uh-huh.
And they would just pour it all over the wounds and into the wounds and everything else, so it would instantly heal the body. And how this stuff works, I have no idea how it can reconstruct damaged and destroyed organs and all this. I don't know. But it worked. That's all I know, and that's all I cared about. So you had something done to you, you came back, and then you were mad saying, what took you so long? Yeah. You remember that part? Yeah. Okay. I was really angry. Well, did you get a pay raise or a medal or anything like that for a job well done? I wish I would have gotten 1 red cent out of all of this. Nothing. Nothing. Mm-hmm. People like us, and a lot of them within the structure, never got paid. Never. Never got paid. And in fact, in real life, they try and keep you beat down. They don't want you to get ahead. They don't want you they definitely do not want you to get ahead financially in any way. They don't want you to really make something of yourself. They don't want you to become very well known within your own community. Uh-huh. There's a lot of things they don't want to have you to rise up to. And if you try, they'll find a way to knock you down. I know it's happened time and time again.
Has it happened to you, Larry?
Oh, yeah. Once all this stuff started coming out, and then we could look back and talk about certain situations that took place, knowing that if it would have changed or we'd have done something differently, we could come out much better, much further ahead, but there was always blocks there to prevent it.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, that is certainly something I've noticed with everyone I've interviewed, is they're all struggling to some degree financially.
Yeah.
You
Now,
know,
I'm not saying we're poor or anything like that. I don't mean it in that sense.
you're just not as well as what you think you could have been.
Definitely.
Right, right.
They won't allow it.
Huh. Why is it? You think that by having wealth that gives you credibility, and with credibility more people would believe your story?
I don't think that has a thing to do with it, because there's been a lot of credible people that's come forward and they just bashed them. Doctors, lawyers, you name it, all over the place. Congressmen, senators, you know, everything. And that has nothing to do with it.
Then why don't they want you well off financially?
I've never really been able to answer that, but it seems like every one of the super warriors they did that to. Why? Who knows? Maybe they feel they could control us better. I don't know.
Now, do you know people that say we would know who are super warriors?
Within this particular circle, yeah. There has to be an individual somewhere within each circle that dealt with well, yeah, wherever they were involved directly. If they was brought information or whatever, yeah, those people would know. They wouldn't know us by name or anything else.
Well, I'm talking about, you know, like Bill Clinton, or, you know, a popular name.
Would they know us?
No. Would you know them? For instance, are there people
If I
out
ever
there?
met them.
Oh, you could tell if you were with them?
Yeah.
They have a certain sense
Because
of
I do remember a lot of people, names, and I'm constantly watching to see if I recognize somebody.
Right. But would you say it's out of the question, say, for them to insert their own president of the United States?
Well, let me say this. I don't know about past presidents, but I know Bill Clinton has had many clones.
Mm-hmm. You know that for a fact?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because of his involvement in things. They've had to put clones in to protect him.
Otherwise someone would take him out, or?
Yeah. There have been many instances of where he's been tried to be taken out, but they've kept it hush-hush.
Mm-hmm.
Privately.
So they set up these clones to distract.
In case someone would succeed.
Ah. So if they did, then
Since it was done privately, I mean, he could emerge the next day, you know, fit and fair and everything else, and what's that individual going to say?
Wow.
See what I'm getting at?
Again, that's hard to believe, but again, when I was talking with Larry, he said, Mike, we can take, he said, everything is a frequency.
Sure.
He said, I can read all your frequencies, put it in a computer, and create an exact clone of you.
Yeah. It takes about 6 hours to create a clone. From beginning to actual human being.
Well, do these clones have a soul?
I can't answer that.
I mean,
I do not know.
Have you ever met a clone?
There's times I think I have, but there's no way to prove it, because you really, I think a wife would be the only one that could ever tell them apart. And then they wouldn't, until, like my wife did, many years later, realized.
Well, Larry said that they have all the memories.
It's yeah. Fingerprints same,
Right.
memories the same, actions the same, everything.
Mm.
It's a clone, just like the lamb or the sheep. It's an exact duplicate, right down to everything.
With a few exceptions sometimes.
Which it would be they'd be so minute you could never tell.
Wow. Wow. Well, let's move to, say, some other projects, some other things that you worked on in this alternative life that you led. You did the Civil War thing. I guess what your part was successful.
My part and the others was sent.
The others were sent. Now,
I had no knowledge that others were sent. But there's no way one individual could have done it all anyway. I knew that.
I don't think so. Now, we've also heard about re-engineering World War II. Also, re-engineering that went down during the Roman eras. Were you involved in any of that?
Not to my knowledge.
Just the Civil War.
Yeah. I was sent back in time out west, 1800s, probably late 1800s, to a land baron. He owned thousands of acres of land, and this man needed to be taken out so the land would fall into the right hands that they wanted it to. So I become a cowboy, and I got to be real close with him.
Yeah.
And was out on a range one day, and I felt that this was the time to eliminate him. And I pulled out the Spazor, S-P-A-Z-O-R. Just a small handheld item. And once you aim it and activate it, the human body just crumbles into nothing, just disappears.
Sounds like a phaser.
Yeah, I call it a Spazor. I don't know why. And so I said, okay, it's time to get this over with. I've been here long enough. So I zapped him. And any time you're involved in a killing, you do it as privately and as quickly and as non-messy as you can, or turn it into an accident. But you never do it when anyone else is around. That's the given. Well, after zapping this guy...
Does that create a paradox?
I guess. I don't know. Well, the thing is, if you do it when others are around, then you've got to eliminate them. And then you change even more of history.
See, that's what I'm pondering here. What if you took them out because they thought that the land needed to go to someone else, but
which they knew it did because of what took place in the future and whose hands it fell into, and they didn't, and they decided they wanted it in someone else's hands to do something else with it and make better money out of it.
But
money is one thing that's always at the bottom of the root of all of it.
Follow the money. But what if it turned out to be the wrong decision, that they actually made less money as a result of that?
Well, that was never the case because they analyzed it right down to the most minute detail and knew who back then it would be set up to get it into the hands of, to make sure that in the future it was taken care of properly the way they wanted it. So nothing was left to chance.
Wow. So they were able to model all that type of human behavior?
Oh, yeah. Everything.
That is mind-boggling.
Yeah. So anyway, I zapped this guy, and I'm just kind of sitting there on the horse snickering myself as he just disappears and breaks up in little bitty particles and floats away. And I happen to look up, and here's this other cowboy on a horse just a short distance away. And I'm thinking, oh, damn, now I got to take him out too.
Yeah.
I said, wait a minute. Who the hell's going to believe him?
Nobody.
Think about it.
Oh, did he see it?
Yeah, he witnessed it. He was scared to death. He's petrified.
I imagine.
And I knew I was supposed to take him out. And I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to let that sucker live his life and try to figure out how he's going to tell somebody what he saw. You know, I got a good laugh out of it. And so I just left him.
Yeah. And
then they pulled me out, and that was the end of it. But this vast, I do not know where out west it was, or even this land baron's name. That has never come to me either.
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like as we talk, memories come up, because you said earlier that the only time you time traveled was the Civil War thing. And now...
No, I don't recall saying that was the only time.
Okay.
Or if I did, I was wrong. I did not mean to.
Okay, so there were many times, and
at least these two times that I went back in time.
That you recall.
Most of the rest of the time was I even went to the future. But I think the bulk of it was to outer space for whatever we did out there, and plus going to different secret installations to do different things. They used the warriors for many different roles because we were so versatile.
Now, one of the common questions is, when you go to the future, do you go to a probable future or a definite future?
Definite. It's different. You don't go to the future like you do to the past. In the past, you can go in a straight line.
Okay.
Because the past is right there. You know, it's behind you. So they can send you through right back to whatever time, era, place they want. Future is strange. What?
How long were you in the Air Force?
4 years. Okay. That's my granddaughter. The future is different because it has to be programmed in such a way that you kind of go roundabout way to get there.
Huh.
It's like taking 4 paces right, 2 paces forward, maybe 4 more right, and then back on around. They cannot send you in a straight line to the future. It just won't work. I think they found that out the hard way before it was perfected. Luckily, I wasn't one of the guinea pigs that was thrown into the vortex to see if it worked or not.
And see if you came back.
They did that a lot. In the experimentation to get them to work. They would just literally throw people into them. They were expendables.
Where'd they get the people from, do you think?
Just grab them off the street.
Were they homeless people?
Could have been. Yeah, it could be how they got rid of a lot of people. And most time it was probably people like that were unknowns.
Maybe in prison or something?
Yeah, anything. So, and they were expendable just to get rid of them.
Can you imagine the fear that was going through their body?
Oh, there's thousands of them floating around out there somewhere.
They're just in limbo somewhere.
Yeah, they have no idea where they went because they found out that they weren't right on their coordinates and couldn't get them back.
Couldn't they? I mean, they were able to bring you back. Why couldn't they bring them back?
Because that was in the early experimentation days when it's just getting it all worked out.
How about later on, though? Did they not have the data so that they could retrieve them?
Evidently not, because they could never find them.
Wow. Well, so let's talk about the future.
I was only sent to the present future. In other words, back in wherever it was in the 70s, I was sent maybe to the 80s or to sometime in the early 90s, not to the real far future. So I have no idea what's coming.
Okay.
And I was sent like down into Texas to organize something down there to get certain things changed and so they could come out ahead in a certain business or whatever. It was nothing what I thought was, or even to take somebody out. It was nothing really what I called phenomenal that made a major impact on anything other than something local that they wanted changed, just for their own self. They did that a lot too. You could never figure them out. You can't ever understand them, their logic, reasoning, thinking, or anything.
You were just only to execute, not question.
That was it. Even though a lot of times we would lie to them. They knew we was lying, but they couldn't prove it. We would do all kind of things to try and throw them off, but because we didn't like what we was doing. But yet we still couldn't break that hold they had on us with the programming.
You couldn't stop it, huh?
No, couldn't stop it. We still did what they wanted us, but a lot of times we would change things or do things differently and flat out lie to them. Anything.
So you had
a lot of times we'd give them false information. We'd sit there, and just tell them flat out, okay, here's what took place. And they were so eager for the knowledge that a lot of times they didn't know he was lying, but it sure threw their records off. We did that deliberate. So they've got these mounds of records and info they constantly sort through, and it's garbage.
So that
was our way of getting back.
Yeah, a little sense of humor there too, huh?
Yeah.
Now, I think when we talked yesterday, you said there's a lot of underground facilities.
Oh yes, more. I was only in a few all over the United States, and I know there's more than what I was involved in.
You said you went to Area 51?
Yeah, several times. That's where we used the time shuttle.
Was that sort of...
It's a shuttle to take teams of men out on expeditions, missions out in space, wherever.
Wow. Okay. I tell you what, Larry, why don't we do this? It's been quite a while. Let's see. It's been an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we take a break? Maybe we can do this another day.
Sure.
So that you can get to your grandkids and have a good time with them. Does that sound fine?
Yeah, just call whenever you want.
Okay.
Yeah, I should be here each evening.
Okay, this is excellent. I'm going to have to listen to this, and many more questions will come
Oh, yeah.
up.
Every time you listen to it, you come up with 1,000 questions.
And I bet you there's a lot of stuff I haven't even gotten to yet.
No, you haven't even touched the surface. You haven't even touched the surface.
I'm not even close, am I?
No.
Okay, well, you're going to help me get there, though.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
All right. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye.